Good morning, you guys. Your boy Bill Mahari here, represent Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the basketball community. If you want more basketball content, tune in to Basketball Conversations every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time, is where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. And please spread the word about the channel. If you want to donate any money to the value of this channel, I will also post in the PayPal and Cash App link underneath the description box if you want to donate any money to the value and the production of this channel. So, this is my morning historical perspective show that I always do every Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Central Time. This is where I put in a 15 to 20-minute video about a great player, a great team, great series, or great games in basketball history. Anything that you want me to talk about, I will gladly do so and do my best research to give you guys the best analysis that I can give you. So, a loyal subscriber pretty much asked me to do this historical perspective on Mr. Michael Cooper, who was one of the best defenders during the 80s and early 90s, okay? And a guy that a lot of people don't know or probably just forgotten about during the LA Showtime era. But he was so significant to what he was as a player. But this was the one thing that I learned about during my research about him is that this was a guy that should not have been playing basketball, and he suffered a lot of confidence issues that it manifested itself during his basketball career. But we're gonna break down his childhood all the way up to when he started playing for the Lakers. Okay, so he was basically born in Los Angeles, California. Okay, and when he was about 3 years old. Okay. When he was 3 years old, he basically, actually, when he was two, one of his knees was basically slashed by a coffee can, and he had to receive 100 stitches to basically close the wound on that knee. And it was during that time where doctors feared that he was never able to walk ever again, and it was basically on a knee brace for 8 years of his life. And he talked about how he felt like he couldn't run, he couldn't jump, he couldn't run on skateboards, and couldn't do all the other things that normal kids were able to do. And he was starving to find out something. Eventually, he found his purpose in life and began playing basketball. Basically, when he started playing basketball, he went on to play basketball at Pasadena High School, and he graduated in 1974. Then he went on to play at Pasadena's Community College before transferring to the University of New Mexico, where he played basketball for 2 seasons between '76 and '78. He was basically named All Western Athletic Conference. All right, and then during his senior season, he helped them lead into a conference title by averaging 16.3 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game. Okay, and so this was the kind of player that was at 6'5" and 170 pounds, really could not just defend, but he could also score. He can also rebound, and he's also a good perimeter threat. But the big constant thing about him is that his confidence level never grew. He always felt like there was always going to be somebody that was better than him, and he always was a self critique, sometimes to a fault. There was an article that Mr. Steve Springer wrote during 1990 for the LA Times. And he talked about how, that he felt that there were a lot of players that would have been better for him, that were better than him. And he pretty much thought that people thought he was a star prep of his team. And then Cooper pretty much said, no, there were 3 other players that were better than me. And when he was basically playing through different kind of college camps, he still went through those same confidence issues. So he even figured that NBA teams figured that there were at least 59 other players that basically were better than him. And he was drafted in the 3rd round of the '78 draft before being taken by the Lakers. But before he was able to sign a contract with the Lakers, he suffered a torn knee ligaments and basically found his career pretty much on the verge of not even beginning. So do you think about that, how he started his career? You come in, you were drafted by the Lakers, okay, in the 3rd round. And then before you even started your career, you end up tearing up your knee real bad to the point where your career pretty much is over before it really began. And to the graces of the previous owner, Jack Kent Cook, he still signed Cooper anyway, but only ended up playing 7 minutes a game during his first season. And it was pretty much during his second season where the final cut came down to two players. It came down to another former player, Ron Carter, and Cooper himself. And Paul Westhead, who was basically the assistant of Jack McKinney at the time during the 79-80 season, he decided he gave his opinion and asked him to go with, Ron Carter. But McKinney, during that time, in a key decision that pretty much dictated the future of the entire Lakers team, didn't went for his advice and stuck with Michael Cooper. And pretty much throughout that entire time as an LA Laker, he was always playing on the edge. He felt so insecure about, his ability, about his, skill set, where he fit along the team. Even there were times where when Pat Riley would ask him, shoot more, take more threes, he would only take at least 4 to 7 shots a game because he just never felt confident in taking a shot, because he felt that if he missed 1 or 2 shots, he would be back on the bench or probably be cut from the team the next day. You know what I'm saying? And so his wife even pretty much said that, he's fine. And then until something else to worry about. Sometimes he'll shut a guy down totally on defense, but he'll come home and say, damn, I only scored 4 points. Sometimes I feel like slapping him. Even after a superb game, he'll come home, get upset about a pass and he could have made or should have made. And that's really I found that very, very interesting. Because during that time, during the 80s, Michael Cooper was responsible for guarding the best forwards and the best guards out there. Guys like Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, the list goes on and on. And pretty much this was a guy that didn't say much, but pretty much let his play do the talking for him. But he just was not, his confidence was not, it didn't grow, but it just kept getting lower and lower. But there was no denying his importance to the team. He was an integral part of the Showtime teams during the 80s with his defensive ability and his basically his sharp shooting ability. Okay, and like I said before, real thin. Even though he was basically in shape, he was basically one of the quickest defenders that the NBA have ever seen. Was ability to move his feet laterally and beat his opponent to the spot before they was able to get anything going. He would play shooting guard, small forward, and sometimes point guard too. And his defensive assignment was usually the other team's best shooter at the 2 or 3 position. And even Larry Bird, during their finals battles in 84, 85, and 87, said that Cooper was the best defender he ever played against. All right? And so for his career with the Lakers, he averaged 8.9 points per game, 4.2 assists per game, 3.2 rebounds, 1.2 steals, and basically 0.6 blocks per game. And during that period of the Showtime era, he was a very popular player among Laker fans who were tended to chant "Cool" when you hear the crowd at the Forum, when people thought they were booing Cooper. No, they weren't booing Cooper. They were basically saying "Coop," and just pretty much in reference to his name, Michael Cooper. And he also set the record for the most threes in an NBA Finals game when he knocked down at least 6 3-pointers in Game 2 of the 87 Finals. This was a kind of player that he could do a lot more and pretty much was proven to do a lot more. Okay? Obviously, he won the 5 titles as through all the Showtime championship years. He was also Defensive Player of the Year. He made first team all defense for 5 seasons, okay, in 82, 84, 85, 87, and 88. And he was also all defensive second team in 81, 83, and 86. Plus, he was the Walter Kennedy Citizenship Sportsmanship Award too, as well. And so, he was the kind of player that pretty much knew his role and played a valuable role with the Lakers at that time. If without Michael Cooper's ability to play defense and without his presence on the floor, there's the matchups with the Celtics would have been a totally different story. And you think about it during that back-to-back years in 87 and 88, he was important in facing against the 3-guard, monster of the Pistons with Isaiah, Dumars, and Johnson too as well. But like I said before, Cooper's confidence issues manifested itself, and it came through during the 89-90 season. And I researched a lot of stuff about what happened during that year, and I might do a separate video about this though too, so be on the lookout for that. But that 89-90 season was a mixed bag for several reasons. They had the league's best record at 63-19. They were the favorites to come out of the West and probably win another championship. All right. But behind the scenes, it was basically an era that was beginning to include it into it basically in its conclusion because of ego, arrogance, and the influence of Pat Riley that was basically rubbing off the players the wrong way, and they were basically tired of his act. Okay. And so here's what happened in a lot of times. Basically, Cooper would talk about how shoot-arounds turned into 40 minutes of 1.5 hours of a lot of video and game tape. And he basically said, end quote, it was mentally fatiguing more than anything else. Coach Riley had changed a little bit. He wasn't open as he used to be. If you had a suggestion, he didn't take it wrong. He just didn't take it. He heard you. Then it was like, okay, you gave it to me, fine, but we're going to do it this way. We were in the past. He really would listen to you and kind of compromise with you. Just the aura he started putting out that year, you felt you don't invade his space today. Not now, not the time. So not now, not the time turned into the whole season. We were kind of hesitant. We were looking at each other on the court. We were looking at each other out on the court. It was the first time I can remember players making a mistake and glancing over the bench for a second that we have never done before. So pretty much the relationship and pretty much the team was kind of breaking apart from within. Because you have to remember, Kareem was basically the meditator. He was pretty much the guy that pretty much everyone respected and everyone kept at peace. But when Kareem retired after that year, everything manifested itself. Magic was much more demanding. He pretty much put the fear in everybody. This is where Shannon Sharp was completely wrong when he talked about that Magic Johnson would have not acted the way Michael Jordan acted. If he were to read some of the stuff that was going on back then, he would know that Magic Johnson was way worse than Michael Jordan, 20 times worse. You know, understand what I'm saying? And I'll give you an example. Pretty much for many Lakers, Divas' quirky antics and scattering moments of longevity, Johnson and Pat Riley and the veteran coach were sapping the joy of the franchise. The star point guard would win his third MVP award in 4 seasons, but devoted too much time to berating and screaming. Having played for so long for Riley, he was now becoming Riley. His practices comments were no longer included soothing touches. If you messed up, Johnson rode you hard. With Abdul-Jabbar's departure came in a certain behavioral liberation. Johnson's inner dictator was emerging. This was not a good thing. All right. So pretty much put it like this. That team basically ran its course, and it was falling apart from within itself because the egos and the pride of the key players on that team was finally manifesting itself. And there were during that 90 playoffs against the Phoenix Suns, you know what I mean? Magic Johnson took some shots at his old teammates like Michael Cooper, and pretty much all this criticism was just pretty much too much to deal with. And when Michael Cooper pretty much was released after that season, he pretty much said that in street clothes, it was actually during a game in Detroit, right? And he at the halftime, Cooper took off his clothes and took off his uniform and was put on his street clothes and sat next to a reporter. He pretty much said, "This is it." And the reporter asked, "This is what?" "This could be the end," Cooper replied. "Why do you think the Lakers are sending me back? If I go home, I just might wind up off the team. They might use this opportunity to cut me." And trust me, he was serious. And the reporter asked him, "What are you talking about, Coop? You're one of the most valuable guys on this team." And then Cooper replied with one of the most honest quotes I've ever even read. He said, "Do you really think the Lakers are just sending me home to rest the ankle? I'm not falling for that. They'll probably put me on waivers. If you leave, you may not come back. They don't have the time to wait on stranglers." And then after that particular game, the reporter basically saw Cooper in the locker room, And the reporter asked him, "Are you still worried?" And then Cooper replied, "Nah, I'm just what's the word that you use? Jack. Use Jack." And Cooper pretty much smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm paranoid." And so paranoia, self-doubt pretty much ran Cooper's career. But it ran it pretty well because he was able to achieve a lot during his time with the LA Lakers. But all these things manifested itself during his final years. And when it came time to, you know, to move on from basketball, he learned how to be a coach and he learned to do other different things. But I don't think he was able to mentally recover for it for a very long time until he was able to sit down with Pat Riley and Magic Johnson and basically, you know, break the peace and patch the fences with each other. And that was very surprising to me, in my opinion, at least. So that's pretty much what I have about that. I think that Michael Cooper will go down as one of the greatest, one of the best defenders that the NBA has seen during the 80s. How I put him in the top 5 or top 10 in terms of greatest defensive players of all time, I would put him probably between the middle of the pack, between 5 and 6. Between 5 and 6, because I think there were other great defenders at that time that did a lot more in terms of their impact on the game. But there's no denying what he was able to do. If Michael Cooper, see, the one thing that really astounded me about Michael Cooper's game was he was much more than just a defender. He could run the floor. He knew how to play 3 different positions. He could finish at the rim, and he was an excellent shooter. It's just that he felt like if he took 2 shots and missed them both, he was not going to pull the trigger because he always reflected back on the time where he was almost cut. That if he wasn't performing up to his capabilities, that the Lakers was going to cut him and cut him loose. And so that fear level dictated his entire basketball career. But it also made him the player that he became. But at the same time, I don't think that Michael Cooper mentally could shake that off out of his psyche. And it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a mixed bag, though, because he had a really successful basketball career with 5 NBA championships and a Defensive Player of the Year award. I mean, he's got a lot to be proud of. But to me, I think that Michael Cooper had some things that he left off the table, but he made the most of his opportunities, and he will go down as one of the great Lakers, in the history of of that franchise, and one of the best defenders in history of basketball. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know what your memories of a Michael Cooper back in the day, and I hope this video sheds light on about his career. Peace.